Hi, welcome. We ready to start? Thank you for taking the time tonight to support organic interests in Iowa by attending this forum. Thank you to Senator Sanders for sharing his platform for agriculture and for listening to Iowa's organic farmers about the issues that are important to us. Thank you to the Organic Farmers Association for providing this unique opportunity to partner and facilitate this discussion about the value and importance of supporting greater organic and regenerative practices across the country. My name is Roz Lehman. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Organic Association. The Iowa Organic Association is a statewide nonprofit organization committed to organic education, outreach, policy, and community cooperation. Our membership is a diverse network of Iowa's farmers, gardeners, food and farm businesses, advocates, and consumers who are devoted to expanding organic agriculture and food systems in Iowa. Iowa is ranked 5th in the nation in organic production, producing more organic corn and soybeans than any other state. Iowa is the 2nd largest producer of organic pork in the United States. And Iowa's largest organic commodity is organic eggs, with organic corn for feed being the 2nd. Iowa's organic farmers are addressing climate change, improving soil health, protecting water quality, enhancing biodiversity, and influencing the next generation of America's farmers. Despite being a national leader in organic production, less than 1% of Iowa's agricultural production is organic. The United States imports nearly 70% of its organic grain each year. We are clearly missing an opportunity to meet this domestic demand. As this $50 billion organic market continues to grow, Iowa producers, landowners, and businesses are looking for opportunities and leadership that encourages participation in this movement. Consumers are increasingly choosing organic and local because of concerns regarding health, the environment, and animal welfare. Expanding the organic industry in Iowa helps boost local economies and meet local demand for products that employ regenerative agricultural practices. We need our local, state, and national policy leaders to recognize how organic can lift the family farm, nurture healthy communities, and restore vital ecosystems. I look forward to the discussion and ideas presented tonight as a vision and potential for the future of agriculture in the United States. So again, on behalf of the Iowa Organic Association, welcome and thank you for attending. Kate Mendenhall, Director of the Organic Farmers Association, and also a certified organic farmer in Northwest Iowa, will now present the next segment of this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Roz. Welcome, Iowa Organic Farmers. Thank you to the Iowa Organic Association for hosting this event with the Organic Farmers Association and in conjunction with your annual meeting. I want to thank Senator Sanders for making time in his busy campaign schedule to meet with Iowa organic farmers about your most pressing issues. The Organic Farmers Association, with support from the Rodale Institute, was created 3 years ago in response to organic farmers nationwide asking for a national-led farmer voice to represent their policy priorities on the national stage. We are a membership-based organization run and controlled by domestic certified organic farmers. Our policy priorities are determined solely by certified organic farmer members and include input from all certified organic farmers across the nation. We truly are the national voice for U.S. certified organic farmers. Organic farming has been the fastest growing agricultural sector for the past 3 decades. While conventional agriculture has continued to lose farmers, age farmers, and run years of low commodity prices like we have seen here in Iowa, the organic market has provided a welcome alternative. New farmers are entering agriculture through the organic label. We continue to certify more organic farms and acres each year, and our domestic markets continue to grow. Organic farming is truly a bright spot in U.S. agriculture. Now our nation needs organic and regenerative farming more than ever. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change declared that the scientific evidence for warming of the planet or the climate system is unequivocal. Since 2010, we have seen the 5 warmest years on record. Perhaps most concerning to farmers is the increase in extreme weather, including increasing intense rainfall events, which we've experienced right here in Iowa. We must start combating climate change as a national priority. Organic and regenerative farming provide ready-made solutions to contribute to this work. Our farmers already voluntarily provide a suite of environmental services through their organic and regenerative practices. This can be replicated and broadened with more governmental support and commitment. We look forward to hearing from Senator Sanders on this topic and from Iowa organic farmers during the question period of this forum. Francis Tickey will be co-moderating the forum with me. He is a longtime organic dairy farmer near Fairfield, Iowa, on the eastern side of the state. He has a PhD in soil fertility and has served as National Program Leader for Soil Science for the USDA Extension Service in Washington, D.C., as well as numerous other agricultural leadership positions, including the first policy chair of the Organic Farmers Association. Welcome, Francis.
Thanks, Kate. I'd like to take a quick few minutes to summarize the tremendous potential that regenerative organic farming systems have for sequestering carbon in the soil and mitigating the effects of climate change. First, let's look at carbon from the planetary perspective. Even though we have lost 50 to 70% of the organic carbon around the world in our soils, there's still more carbon in the soils around the world than there is in the atmosphere and in the biosphere combined. So there's more carbon in the soil than there is in all the atmosphere and all the plant and animal life around the world. That shows what a tremendous reservoir soil can be for carbon. Now today, agriculture emits 9% of US greenhouse gases, but we can reverse that. We can turn agriculture from a net emitter of greenhouse gases to a large net sink for greenhouse gases. And regenerative farmers, ranchers, and scientists are already demonstrating that we can sequester large amounts of carbon in the soil by converting to regenerative crop and livestock systems. So how much carbon do we need to sequester in the soil in order to make a difference in the atmosphere? Well, consider this. If we were to increase soil organic matter levels around the world by 2%, we could sequester the amount of carbon equal to the carbon reduction required to bring atmospheric carbon down to the target goal of 350 parts per million. So we could go from today's 415 parts per million down to 350 parts per million. So soil is a tremendous sink. But it can be done, it will take a radical transformation of agriculture. But what is really exciting about this is that if we convert from industrial to regenerative farming practices, there will be very many beneficial side effects. Not only will we sequester a large amount of carbon in the soils, we will improve soil health and the health and nutrient density of our foods. We will reduce soil erosion, increase soil water holding capacity, and help mitigate the effects of flooding from extreme weather events. We will improve wildlife and pollinator habitat. We will reduce the production and release of methane and nitrous oxide from two potent greenhouse gases that come from industrial agriculture to a great degree. So we will also have healthier and more diverse landscapes and healthier livestock. Our soils become more fertile and more productive. So instead of this vicious cycle we have in agriculture on our water quality and our soil carbon and so on, compaction, we'll create a virtuous cycle in which the benefits of regenerative agriculture will continue to grow as more carbon is sequestered into the organic matter. And also our water quality will be improved. Recent research in Iowa has found that a regenerative organic cropping system reduced nitrate pollution to water resources by 50% compared to corn and soybeans. That's really significant because Iowa's nutrient reduction strategy calls for a 41% reduction in nitrate leaching. And we haven't really made any progress over the last 6 years of this nutrient strategy. So we can surpass that goal with regenerative organic systems. So how can we make this all happen? It will take bold vision and leadership from a new presidential administration, frankly, to make it happen. This kind of fundamental change will not happen through the business as usual, tinkering around the edges of the status quo. It'll take major change. So And so it will require many major policy changes, and including breaking up the marketplace monopolies of agribusiness, changing the priorities of USDA's $3 billion a year research budget, from supporting industrial kind of systems to supporting the expansion of regenerative agriculture through research, demonstration, and education. So we can do it, but it'll take major changes in agriculture to make it happen. So now I invite Senator Bernie Sanders to provide us with his remarks.
Thanks, everybody, for being here. And let me thank Roz and Kate and Francis for their remarks, and thank you all for the important work that you are doing. I can remember, as some of you might, that not so many years ago, organic agriculture was considered to be kind of a fringe operation. You've changed that, as have organic farmers in Vermont and all over the country. And now you are a $50 billion a year business. That ain't fringe. And you are growing at a rate of 10% every single year. And that's really strong growth. And I think the reason for that is that we live in a very uncertain time. And people are worried about the water that they are drinking. And all over this country, people are drinking unhealthy water. They're worried about the air that they are breathing, and kids all over this country, especially in low-income communities, coming down with asthma and other illnesses because of air pollution. And people are mostly worried about the quality of the food that they are eating for themselves and for their kids. They're worried about the pesticides in the food, the way the food is being produced. And what you are seeing all across this country is more and more people say, you know what, I want to know where my food comes from. And I want it to be healthy, and I don't want it to be laden with pesticides. And that is why I think your industry is growing. Needless to say, we have a number of challenges in front of us if we're going to maintain the strength, the growth, and the integrity of organic agriculture in this country. And I know, as in every other industry, that large corporate interests are more than anxious to get into the business, and they are trying to dilute organic standards. So let me first of all tell you, I believe in the strongest possible organic standards. If a product is going to be labeled organic, it must be organic in the deepest sense of that word. And second of all, I know there is concern about trade policy and products coming into this country. And I believe very much that we should be labeling our food products in terms of country of origin. People want to know that food is being manufactured in an honest way, that the labels mean something, and that that food is manufactured to the best degree possible, produced right here in the United States of America. So we're going to be very strong on country of origin. I have a little bit of a history, just tell you very briefly a story, if I might, before somebody steals the mic from me here. Way back when, my state, Vermont, is a dairy state. And I'm going to get into, in this discussion, an issue I know that is on everybody's minds, and that is the massive attacks against family-based agriculture, whether it's organic or not organic. And in Vermont, my memory is correct, over the last 10 years, we have lost about 25% of our dairy farmers. And that's true all over this country. And it is a terribly, terribly sad thing. People whose families have farmed for generations now being forced off of the land because of low prices. The prices they're getting are not coming close to the cost of production. But I will remember that some years ago, I think it was maybe 20 years ago, our good friends in Monsanto my dear friends. That's a joke, all right? Geez, you don't have much of a sense of humor here. They came up with a product called BST. We have any dairy farmers here? Okay, remember BST? BST. Here was a time, then and now, where we have a glut of milk. And what Monsanto wanted to do is to stress out cows to increase milk production at a time when we wanted to cut back on milk production. Lower prices, stress out cows. Brilliant idea. I'll never forget this. I was invited to appear on CBS as a congressman and not in the Senate to talk about BST and why I opposed the introduction of BST into Vermont dairy. And this is interesting. Monsanto threatened to sue CBS. Now, CBS is not a mom and pop operation. They're a multi-zillion dollar operation. And I never got on the air to talk about it at that time. But we did do, Monsanto, as all of you know, is a very, very powerful, nefarious force in many respects. But the end result of all of this stuff is that family-based agriculture, whether it's dairy or anything else, is under assault right now. And that's an issue that concerns me very much. So let me talk about the fact that right now, as many of you know, about 77% of all federal subsidies are going to the 10% to 10% of the farms in America. 77% of subsidies go to 10% of the farms. Under a Bernie Sanders administration, we are going to change that formula, and subsidies, federal aid, will go to the farmers who need it the most, the farmers who are doing the most important work, and that is not factory farms. So we're going to change that formula. And, above and beyond organic farming, our administration will do something that has not been done in a very long time under either Republican or Democratic administrations. And that is, we will appoint an Attorney General of the United States who understands antitrust law. We adjust in terms of agriculture. But by the way, as I think all of you know, this phenomenon of concentration of ownership is true in industry after industry, from Wall Street on. But right now, in terms of agribusiness, we cannot continue to allow just 4 large companies to control 82% of the beef packing industry, 85% of soybean processing, 63% of pork packing, and 53% of chicken processing. So we need, and I will appoint, an Attorney General who will not only impose a moratorium on new agribusiness mergers, but will break up agribusiness monopolies that are devastating family-based agriculture all across this country. That will be true for agriculture. That will be true in other sectors of our economy. All over America now, we have too few large corporations who are controlling our economy, and that has got to change. The last point that I want to just touch on is an issue that I am happy to say the media is now beginning to pay attention to, and that was not always the case. And that is the existential threat to our planet of climate change. And I think many of you have followed some of the recent reports coming from the United Nations and other studies that are out there. And essentially now what the scientific community is telling us is that they underestimated the severity and the speed in which climate change is wreaking havoc on our country and, in fact, the entire world. This is an issue, the more I read about it, the more I study it, the more frightened I become. And we need to take on the fossil fuel industry. We need to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And we need to tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. So we are in an existential moment here. And I don't mean to frighten people, and I'm not an expert. The scientists know a lot more than I do. but you can read it. There's a piece in the New York Times today. I mean, whether you're talking about rising sea levels, whether you are talking about a projected significant decline in corn production, in potato production, whether you're talking about fishing, where so many people around the world and in our own country are dependent upon fish for their protein. And you're seeing species after species of fish being wiped out, fish moving north into colder waters because the ocean is warming. This is a huge, huge crisis. And it pains me very much. I think all of you know that I disagree with Donald Trump on everything. All right. But and that's saying it mildly, but on this issue of climate change, he is literally threatening the lives and well-being of our kids, our grandchildren, and future generations. And we're going to have to stand up, and agriculture has a very important role to play in that. But just not only as a nation, but as a world, because we could do all the right things tomorrow. But if China and Russia and India and Pakistan and all the countries around the world are not involved in it, let me tell you, this planet will be increasingly unhealthy and uninhabitable for future generations, and we cannot allow that to happen. So thank you very much, and all that I can tell you is that if elected to the presidency, family-based agriculture and organic agriculture will have a friend in the White House.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Sanders, for your opening remarks. We will now transition to questions from Iowa certified organic farmers. The Organic Farmers Association was created to elevate the voice of certified organic farmers in this nation, bringing their policy concerns and priorities to the national stage. We appreciate you sharing your questions with us tonight. We have selected 6 questions, and each question is allotted no more than 5 minutes of response from Senator Sanders. If we have time, we will take additional questions from the audience. Please proceed with the first question.
Good evening. My name is Kim Anderson, and I run Blueberry Bottom, which is a certified organic blueberry farm in rural Brighton, Iowa. Organic regenerative farming practices are essential for fighting climate change, and they provide environmental services that support clean air, water, and healthy food for our communities. We need more organic farmers. How will your agricultural policies incentivize more family farms to adopt and continue organic and regenerative farming practices?
Well, thank you very much for that important question. Let me begin by saying we will demand that factory farming be held to a standard in which we understand the incredible environmental impact they are having on communities all over this country. It is not acceptable to me, nor I think to you, that you have factory farms whose waste is not only polluting our air, but polluting our water, costing communities huge amounts of money to deal with that. Factory farming must be held accountable, and we're going to put a moratorium on factory farming. Second of all, I believe in family-based agriculture for a variety of reasons. We are looking right now in Vermont, and I know in Iowa, in significant declines in population in counties all over your state and all over my state. And that's true all over America. Rural America is in trouble. And implicit in that is the fact that family-based agriculture is in serious, serious decline. So if we believe in organic agriculture, then what we have got to do is provide resources for farmers to make that transition away from conventional agriculture into organic agriculture. And that is not easy. That is not easy, depending on the product that you're producing. And we are going to provide, because we believe in that, not 77%, as I said before, of federal subsidies to the 10% of largest farms, but to those farmers, among other things, who want to make that transition. We understand, and I speak most definitively about dairy, but I suspect it's true in a number of other agricultural areas, that our farmers are getting older. We want young people to understand that agriculture can be a really meaningful and important way of life. And that means they need a decent price for their product, and that's why we're going to make sure that there is parity, that farmers will be guaranteed, family-based agriculture will be guaranteed a fair price for their product. And we're not going to continue to see the decline in rural America and family-based agriculture. Bottom line here is if we want to grow the number of organic farmers, then we're going to have to help those currently doing conventional farming make the transition and entice younger people to get into the business. And that's an expensive business, and for the sake of our country, I think it's important that we do that.
Since there's another minute yet in this question, Bernie, would you support transitioning more of the $3 billion USDA research budget to research in organic farming, since we need it?
We are talking, I'm not quite sure how many of you are familiar with all aspects of our campaign, but we're talking about a political revolution. We're talking about transforming this country. So the answer to your question is obviously yes. We will do that, no question.
Thanks for being here, Bernie.
Thank you.
My name is Billy Salmons. As Salmons Custom Farming, I co-own and operate the Hunter Multi-Generational Farm in Sheridan, Iowa, where we grow diverse organic crops on 120 acres. As Dr. Ticky mentioned earlier this evening, healthy organic soil can sequester large amounts of carbon, more than we even realize. It seems fitting that today, on World Soils Day, I have a question for you. If
I got to confess, I did not know that today was World Soils Day. You caught me unaware here.
If elected president, how would you assure that the USDA makes healthy soil a high priority, not only for all farmers, but in particular that it's a requirement for certified organic crops?
Well, I think the last part of your question deals with very strong standards in terms of organic agriculture. And what you're saying is that part of that standard, part of that criteria, has got to be that the soil used by farmers is healthy soil and is rich soil. And God knows we are seeing some bad things in that respect all over this country. The other point that you made, and as I said, I was on a TV program 10 minutes ago, and guy asked me about climate change is my major. I don't know how anybody in this world, not just in this country, cannot understand that climate change is an extraordinary priority for our country and the world if we love our kids and our grandchildren. So I think agriculture can play a major role, and what we will do is we transform the Department of Agriculture away from supporting agribusiness and factory farming to supporting family-based agriculture and moving aggressively on climate change. What we will do is pay farmers to capture carbon. Pay farmers to capture carbon. Right now, that is not the case. But I think if the agricultural community can be aggressive in maintaining good soil, and which will absorb carbon, that will be an enormous contribution to fighting climate change, and we should be prepared to provide financial assistance for that. And happy World Soils Day.
Good evening, Senator. My name is Andy Dunham, and I'm a fifth-generation farmer here in Iowa. My daughter Emma is here with me. She's a sixth-generation Iowa farmer. And my wife and I own and operate Grinnell Heritage Farm in Grinnell, Iowa, where we grow a wide array of vegetables and fruits and nuts and have pasture and a grass-fed beef herd. We're one of the oldest farms in central Iowa. And I kind of feel like you've answered my question a little bit.
But I can always repeat. That's what politicians do,
In appointing an attorney general who maybe will look on this more favorably, but for years, farmers have been squeezed by low prices, vertical integration of agribusiness, and monopolies of markets. And while much of this has been happening in the conventional sector, it is also now affecting the growing organic market. So in addition to appointing an attorney general who will use antitrust legislation, how else would you curb this vertical integration and the monopolies and ensure fair pricing to family farmers.
Okay. I indicated to you that I am deeply concerned about concentration of ownership in the agribusiness industry. We will put a moratorium on mergers, and we will have an attorney general who is prepared to break up industries, corporations who are dominating and monopolizing a given industry. I think what we will also do, as I mentioned, is for the sake of rural America, for the sake of the production of good food, we will do everything possible to bring more young people into agriculture so that we can have more family-based agriculture. Now, I think that the American people, and I'll never forget this, I was mayor of the largest city in the state, in Vermont. It's Burlington, Vermont. And I remember distinctly when I was mayor how much, we had no farms in the city, but how strongly people in Burlington supported family-based agriculture throughout the state. People support family-based agriculture in America, whether you're in a city or in a rural area. So for the sake of strengthening rural America, for the sake of bringing more people into family-based agriculture, our policy will be to support those people who are going into family-based agriculture and especially going into organic agriculture in a number of ways. And by the way, one of the things you'll learn when you run for president is how one issue impacts another issue. You know, nothing is separate from anything else. So when we talk about making public colleges and universities tuition-free, and when we talk about canceling all student debt, that will give a whole lot of young people say, you know what, I'd love to go into agriculture. I just can't afford it right now. It'll give them the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Senator Sanders, for joining us today. I'm Margaret Smith. My husband and I run a 600-acre organic grain and livestock farm about 50 miles north of here near Hampton. We raise our crops for human food, for seed crops, and then for some animal feed as well. I appreciate that the National Organic Program allows us to do that, to certify our crops and sell them and identity into the market. That's been great for us. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be farming. And of course, then we hire certifiers to come and check what we do. We operate on the honor system, right? And so the NOP is also mandated with ensuring that honor system. As organics has become more profitable, there's fraud that's entered the organic system. And both domestic and international. And what I'd like to know what your administration would do to help prevent fraud. That's undercutting our prices and undercutting our ability to make a living.
So people who are not really organic are posing as organic, or they're, okay, both domestically and internationally.
Right. And sadly enough, it was an investigative reporter with the Washington Post who really got into understanding that some of our imports were fraudulent.
Huge shipments are coming in that are fraudulent from other countries.
Labeled as organic when they're not.
Yes.
Right, but it's both domestic and international.
Look, it is, no great secret. You already know that we have a corporate world today that in many respects is not just very greedy, but is corrupt. I mean, you see that every day. Don't get me going about the pharmaceutical industry and their greed and corruption, but it's very widespread. So the answer is, I think I indicated earlier, is that for the sake of consumers who are spending good dollars on organic food, they want to know that it is organic. That's what they want. So we will prosecute very heavily those corporate interests. We will maintain strong standards. And at some point, maybe we can discuss how we strengthen those standards and what that means. But we will support the strongest standards possible. We will go after and prosecute those people who are lying about what they are doing or violating those standards. We will be very strong about country of origin to make sure that if you're buying a product, you know where that product was grown. So those are some of the things we will do, but it is an issue that I take very seriously.
Thank you, Senator, for coming tonight and listening to us organic farmers. I feel it's a very important policy discussion going forward. My name is James Franzen. I'm from Northeast Iowa. I help my parents run an organic beef, pork, and grain farm, and we produce organic meat for Organic Valley, the farm-owned co-op. It has 2,000 family farmers all across the United States, including your state in Vermont, over 100 farmers. And also I own and operate an organic livestock feed mill, Riverside Feeds. I work with numerous farmers every day all across the United States. And I do know that they are still the backbone of America. We need a Secretary of Agriculture who stands with sustainable family farmers, not corporate interest groups. Will you appoint a Secretary of Agriculture who understands and will support vibrant, organic, and regenerative family farmers?
Absolutely. Look, I have spent my entire political life fighting against the greed and the corruption of corporate interests. And right now, it is no secret to anybody in this room that we have a Department of Agriculture which supports, subsidizes factory farming, agribusiness, and has turned its back in a significant way to the family farmers, on the family farmers of this country. And the result is tragic. Organic or non-organic, we're seeing so many families forced off the land. So you have my word, and this one you can take to the bank, that we will not be appointing a Secretary of Agriculture who comes from agribusiness, who comes from big corporate interest. He will come from the family, he or she will come from a background in family-based agriculture, who knows the pain that is going on right now, knows the importance of organic agriculture, knows what's going on in terms of the decline of rural America, all of those issues. There's no question that you will have an aggressive Secretary of Agriculture who's going to fight for family farmers and for organic agriculture.
I apologize, I couldn't get up there. My name is Patty Naylor. I farm organically with my husband George. We have organic corn, soybeans, oats, hay, and a cider apple orchard. And I don't have my question with me. I think it was something about, it was about the organic standards, and you touched on that already. So I think if we really are serious about fighting climate change, all of our agriculture should be organic. And right now, the United States is trying to export their industrial agriculture model. It's been estimated by the United Nations that 820 million people today are food insecure, and climate change is going to make that worse. So I believe, I'd like your response, United States should be a role model in parity for their farmers, so the farmers can actually make some money. Supply management, so we're not overproducing the wrong foods.
Let me just jump in there and tell you.
And food and grain reserves as well.
All right, if you talk to anybody in the state of Vermont, they will tell you that from my first day in the United States Congress back in 1991, I was a strong advocate of supply management. And what has happened in dairy, and it happens in other products as well, prices go up, people overproduce, they go into debt to produce, prices go down and they're stuck, and farmers go out of business because there's a glut on the market. And actually in Vermont now, I have to tell you that after years and years of resistance from family-based dairy farmers, there is now significant support for the concept of supply management. And where I live in Burlington, is 50 miles away from Canada. Canada has, some of you may know, in terms of dairy, very strong supply management, and by and large, their farms are doing very well. The price they're getting per hundredweight is almost double what it is in Vermont, okay? So I am counting in terms of supply management. And in terms of climate change, as I've just indicated, I don't know that there's, there are so many issues out there. We're gonna fight for healthcare and education, but how can anybody in this day and age not understand the severity of the crisis regarding climate change? And we will use all the tools and all the ways, but certainly we're not going to export an agricultural model, which makes a bad situation worse. What we want to do is to make sure that we feed, and by the way, you talk about people abroad being food insecure. You don't have to go too far away from here in the United States of America. So we want to be feeding our people. We want to feed our people healthy food. We want to work with countries around the world to wipe out starvation and food insecurity.
I'd like to follow up with part of Patty's question, which she didn't have in her hand. But it has to do with something that you've mentioned before, Senator Sanders, that integrity of organics. And just the little short history is that we've had some very big failings on integrity. We've seen the Trump administration come in and throw out the animal welfare standards. We've seen lack of enforcement of grazing standards, and we've seen allowance of hydroponics. And the problem is that we see agribusiness going through the back door of USDA, lobbying hard and getting a seat at the table that we as farmers don't have. What can we do about that?
Well, we're going to change the design of the table. That's what we're going to do. All right, let me just ask you a question. And I think, Francis, you made the point. I want to talk about standards. All right. What do we need to do? Because I'm not an expert in this area. What do we need to do to strengthen standards? And I know that it's going to be different for different commodities. But give me some ideas. You touched on some. But if you had your druthers, what would it look like?
Well, first I'd mention that organic farmers have gotten so frustrated that a lot of our pioneer organic farmers got together and created something called the Real Organic Project, which is an add-on certification that brings the standards back up to the original intent of the Organic Foods Production Act. So farmers are working in trying to do that. So several things we need. We need to make soil be the basis of organic farming. No hydroponics. We need to have animals grazing in the landscape. We need to have organic chickens having outdoor
So this would by definition do away with the pork factory, the pork, what do you call it?
The CAFO
Yes,
industry.
right. By definition, you would do away with that, yes?
The organic doesn't technically allow concentrated animal feeding operations, CAFOs, but we see that through the back door. They're allowing like 100,000 chickens in a building with no real access to the outdoors. So, and that's, the standard is in place, but we're not enforcing it. We need to have enforced.
Okay, say another word for me on soil.
Soil, the organic standards in the actual law for the produced organic standards mentions soil in many places, that we need to build soil fertility, we need crop rotations. But what's happened is that the industry finds it's cheaper to grow some plants in pots. And now if you go to a store and you buy a tomato, organic tomato, it's very likely to be organic, but it's very likely to be hydroponic, but it's not labeled hydroponic. And so the industry, as through the back door, has twisted USDA's arm and allowed them to say, yes, we're going to let you do whatever you want. You can do the hydroponics, no soil required. And we as organic farmers think that it's wrong, and we need to have that rectified.
Okay. All right, but let me just say, to answer the first part of your question, family-based agriculture and organic-based agriculture will have a very important seat at the table as we go forward discussing these issues.
So we do have some time for questions from the floor.
Well, I maybe just one or two. I'm going to have to, we got to trip back.
We'll take one question. If there's an organic farmer.
As good as your ideas are, the way our legal system works, the president can't do everything alone. There's things you can do, but you can't do everything. But term limits help. Your opinion on term limits?
I'm not a great fan of term limits. I'll tell you why. Maybe because I've been in Congress for 48 years or something. I think term limits, look, is the political system corrupt? Yeah, of course it's corrupt. It's corrupt for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's corrupt because billionaires now are able to spend as much money as they want, and in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. So we need real campaign finance reform. We need to overturn Citizens United. We need to move, in my view, to public funding of elections. Second issue in terms of the political process. It is no great secret that many Republican governors are working overtime to suppress the vote. They don't want people of color, they don't want young people to be participating in the political process. I will fight to make it clear that in this country, if you are 18 years of age or older, you have the right to vote. End of discussion. Now, the problem with term limits is, you have some people up there who are doing a good job, and their constituents would like to see them stay in office. And if you have term limits, sometimes what you do is everybody's coming in as new, you can develop a bureaucracy which has much more power than it should. So the system is corrupt, no question about it, but I would approach it in a different way than term limits. All right, I am going to apologize. We're going to have to get back to Des Moines.
Yep, I'll just close this up. Thank you again to Senator Sanders for engaging in this important discussion with Iowa organic farmers. Thank you to the Iowa organic farmers who asked such engaging questions about the policy issues most important to you and your fellow farmers.
Okay, well, let me just conclude by thanking you all. The work you're doing is enormously important, and people all over the country appreciate what you're doing in helping to get them high-quality food. Thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thank you, Senator.